Am I missing something, Andrew, or Michael's not on yet?
I have not seen Mike yet. No,
Okay.
that's correct.
Well, basically Michael and Travis, right?
That is correct. I do see Commissioner
I see
Malone.
her.
Yep.
Okay.
I believe everyone else, as far as panelists, are here.
Okay. I think Skip needs to turn a light on.
Good evening.
Good evening, Michael.
Hello. I should mute myself. Bye.
I have 6 o'clock and I want to welcome everybody to our commission meeting tonight. It looks like the only commissioner we do not have with us at this point in time is Commissioner Klinger. So welcome everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order. The next item is the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Allegiance to the flag
United States of America, to the republic for it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible.
indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
for liberty and justice for all.
The next item on our agenda is the invitation. And I want to welcome Pastor Cal Kozel from Trinity Lutheran Church. And I want to thank him for being with us tonight to do our invocation. Pastor Cal, welcome, and please provide us with an invocation.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege to be at the meeting tonight. Every week, I think of a verse in the Bible that I try to memorize. And the one for this week is very appropriate for the situation that we're in now in the world. Jesus said to his disciples, who knew that Jesus was going to be leaving them in the near future, but he said to them, "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give unto you. Not as the world gives, that I give to you. Do not let your heart be troubled, and do not be afraid." That's from our Savior, who's speaking to all of us who believe that he is our Savior. So I'm going to say a prayer asking God to give us that peace, during your meeting and in your households, at your workplace, in the community, at your church, wherever you are. because it's very unstable in the world right now. And a lot of it is close to home. So let's pray. Heavenly Father, we begin in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. We thank you for Jesus' words from John chapter 14, verse 27, where he said, "Peace I leave with you." The peace that he was going to win victorious for us on the cross when he died there, in the grave when he rose there. That peace is for all of us who believe. And it's not the peace that the world gives, Lord, but it's the peace that only you through your Son can give to us. And we pray that this peace will be for all the commissioners and other workers in our community tonight. And that this peace will be for all the healthcare workers who are caring for those with the coronavirus and many other illnesses. This peace is for those who are the first responders, the police, the firemen, the paramedics, the military personnel. And this peace is for all our government leaders, the federal, the state, and the local government leaders. And for all the pastors and all the teachers as they start a new school year. And we also pray for all those who work on the farms, in the warehouses, the truck drivers, and all those in the grocery stores, the postal offices, and other essential workers. Pray, Lord, for this peace from Jesus, for all of them as well. Be with our families, be with our co-workers, be with all of our neighbors and friends during this time in the world when there's unrest due to the virus, due to violence, crime, looting going on. We pray, Lord, that your peace will be in our hearts, because that's where it is, in our hearts. And help us to share this peace with all those around us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Pastor.
You're welcome. God bless your meeting.
Thank you. Okay. The next item is roll call, please. Mr. Rhodes.
You guys hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, where am I? Oh, here we are. Okay, Commissioner Mullins.
Present.
I think I heard some. Commissioner Burke.
Present.
I am too.
Okay. Commissioner Klinger.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Wiki.
Here.
Commissioner Malone.
Here.
Commissioner Littman.
Here.
Vice Mayor Good.
Yes,
Okay, and Mayor Heil.
yes,
Present. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is proclamations and presentations. And we have Sturgis High School value of solar. John, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Vice Mayor and Commissioners. With us tonight, we also have Art Ebert and Ray Sterling, Sturgis Public Schools. And just have a real brief introduction, and we'll turn this over to Chris Lund with Utility Financial Solutions, who did the report and the analysis based on the request from the students at the high school. Looking back through some notes, we were meeting with them prior to March. I didn't write down anything prior to that, but then March 12th or 13th hit, things kind of came to a halt. But at their request, we contracted with Utility Financial Solutions to take a look at their request to come up with recommendations for net metering, or some variation of net metering for on-site generation owned by customers, residential, commercial, and industrial. So Chris Lund gathered some information and data, not only from our usage, but also under our new power supply with Michigan Public Power Agency, and did an analysis on their request and has some recommendations. So if that's enough of an introduction, Chris, I will turn that over to you so you can hit the highlights of your report, and then we can have some questions perhaps at the end. And then if there's anything that Dr. Ebert or Mr. Sterling would like to add, we'll certainly welcome their comments. So it's all yours, Chris.
Yes, thank you, John. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, let me start my video. Good evening. This is Chris Lund from Utility Financial Solutions. I really appreciate the opportunity to be speaking with you all this evening. As John mentioned, we did some extensive analysis, not only related to the solar, but also to your overall electric rate design that we'll be getting into later this evening. When it comes to the analysis, as John mentioned, we looked at a very detailed analysis of your power supply and how installing solar behind a customer's meter would impact those power supply costs. And I know Holly, John, Jeff, Donna, and Michael all contributed greatly to the project, and I just wanted to give a big thank you to all the staff members. So when we looked at the study, I'm going to share my screen. And let's go to I'm trying to find, here we go. So hopefully you can see a summary PDF, and this is got the heading Valuation of Solar Report. And I believe that you all received a copy of this 16-page report. And what we did is we took a detailed look at, as John mentioned, all of your power supply, and we calculated what the value that solar would contribute as a part of your power supply. And we came up to two main summary findings. And if you skip down to page 11 of your report, the two main findings, we did an analysis on two different basic types of solar. The first one was the most common, which is a fixed array solar. So it would be a typical solar panel that you might see on a residential rooftop or in somebody's side or backyard or out in the field somewhere. A solar panel that is fixed in nature, so it is mounted and the panel itself does not move. So the next one we did is getting more popular, and it's what we call a single axis tracking solar array. It actually, on the panel mount itself, has a pivot. So the solar panel actually pivots with the sun to optimize the solar production. So we did two analysis, one with the more traditional fixed solar array, and the second one, that single axis array, in the event that some of your customers start looking at that option. We wanted to have that calculation done for you. So in summary, we calculated that the savings or the value that the fixed solar would provide is 4.7 cents per kilowatt, per kilowatt hour of solar produced. And the single axis array would provide a value of 5 cents per kilowatt hour of all the solar production. Now, there are a number of issues related to what do you do with these numbers and how do you make sense out of integrating them with your customers' rates and your metering and your billing. So we actually take a look at some of those methodologies. And on this summary page, you'll see that the most common one that we see for most the smaller installations or residential are usually on a system called net billing. And with net billing, what happens is the customer is actually charged at their regular retail rate for energy or kilowatt hours that they receive from the Sturgis electric utility. And then in the event that they produce any solar that is in excess of what they need to use at their home, they would push that extra power back onto the Sturgis grid to be redistributed to other customers. And so under net billing, what we do is we take those two measurements. We take the electricity delivered to the customer and bill that at the full retail. And we take the energy that's pushed back to the utility from the customer in excess, and we credit the customer at what we call the avoided cost, which are these calculated numbers up here. So the customer would receive 4.7 cents for every kilowatt hour that they give back to Sturgis in excess. So we find that that's the most common methodology for the smaller residential installs. Now, from what I understand, I believe your system has not taken advantage of tracking that excess pushback. And I believe with a small metering and billing integration change that you would be able to track that and then properly credit each customer that does give power back. The next one is most common for larger installations or a customer typically that is more of a commercial or industrial type of account. They would be on what we term a buy all, sell all type of arrangement. So under that arrangement, think of the customer before they had solar. In other words, they pay their regular retail rates or the regular rates that Sturgis charges that customer for all of their usage. And I'm going to call that consumption for now. So that consumption, when they install solar, could either come from Sturgis or it could come from their solar array. So they actually pay the regular retail rates for all of their consumption, regardless if it comes from Sturgis and or their solar array. But the big benefit to that, though, is on the crediting side, these credit amounts are applied to all of the customer's production, regardless if they gave it back to Sturgis or if they kept it and used it behind their meter, for example, at their business, if it were a commercial, or their factory, for example, if they're an industrial. So that puts the billing on an equal plane in terms of what they should pay for the value of being interconnected to the electric utility, and also being compensated for all of their solar production. So I know it's a lot of terminology to try to understand, but those are the main components. Again, we first calculated what are those values, and then what are the methods that we can meter and bill it for each customer, and how would we go ahead and calculate those bills. Now, I do have some more detailed information on the metering and billing options if you do want to look at, how each example is actually calculated through the system. Now, I want to also mention that Sturgis has recently plans to install solar, and that value is right on par with what we've calculated here. So you will have some opportunities within your utility fairly shortly to take advantage of some solar generation. I would like to open it up to questions. Those are the main topics. I know there's a long and detailed report here. So if there are any specific parts of it that needs further details or questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Is there any commissioners that would have any questions for Mr. Lund on the report that they provided? And I can't see the full thing because Chris is still sharing the screen.
I'm watching, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Are there none?
I see no hands at the moment.
What about our audience that's with us tonight?
So for number one, if Dr. Ebert or Ray Sterling have any questions, I guess now would be the appropriate time.
I was going to introduce them here and ask them that question. I just was curious if there's anybody out there that had a question at this point, but yeah. But if Dr. Ebert or Ray Sterling has something to comment on, please join in.
Chris, hi, Art Ebert, Superintendent, Sturgis Public Schools. I do have a quick question. I think I know the answer, but I'll ask it for clarity. On the net billing option that you described, if, like, for instance, the school system was to produce solar, we wouldn't be billed for what we produce, but we would use up what we produce and then pay for what other energy we need. Now, if there's excess, then, we would get a credit for that at the 4.7 or the 5 cents.
I'm not, yeah, the theory you're describing accurately. What I'm not intimately knowledgeable of is what every single account within the school system is on for a rate structure. So I don't
Understood.
know if they would all qualify for that type of install or that size of install. But to the extent that they're fall within the Sturgis installation and interconnection policy in terms of sizing they're going to allow based on the size customer you are, that would be true. If you start getting into some larger systems that then they may opt you up to that buy all sell all, depending on, again, how large the solar install is and what type of customer account you are at that meter.
Thank you.
All right.
And this is John, if I could add to that too, the report that Chris has prepared for us talks about the economics and how those numbers were derived, and whatever direction the commission gives us as far as trying to push forward one of these processes, if that's our desire. Also need to take a look at the implementation. We do have some documents that were prepared for what we now call distributed energy resources, which this would be. And if we need to move forward, I would need to have those documents brought before the commission for your consideration and approval, and then any other engineering requirements it might be. So whether we'd have a cap per customer or per kilowatt hour, those sorts of things would still have to be answered over and above Chris's report on just the value of the solar.
And I might add to that, John, that what we're seeing most common across the country is that a utility would not necessarily always break it by rate customer rate class, like residential only versus non-residential. They may say, we're going to break it based on the certain size of solar that may be installed behind a particular meter. So, and that is kind of the area that's up to the local utility and council's discretion. But what we're seeing most common is a break somewhere between 10 and 25 kW behind the meter of installed solar that would generally be allowed to be under net billing. And anything over that 10 to 25, depending on where you choose to break it, would be go to the buy all sell all, is typically what we see across the country.
Thanks, Chris.
So is that usually, so we have, for instance, and I know we're getting into the weeds a little bit, but we have multiple school sites. So is that 10 to 25 typically at each site, or is that for us as an entity?
In general, we're seeing that behind each meter. So to the extent that you had different accounts and different billing meters, you would generally be allowed up to that behind each meter. Now, also take a quick look, at what we call right sizing. And this is typically what we recommend. And again, this is up to Sturgis and, ultimately the decision makers to decide, but we generally recommend that not only do you decide what size is going to be allowed to break the net billing versus the buy all sell all, but within that, you would want to pre-qualify each customer's installation based on their usage patterns prior to installing solar. So you would look at the customer's total usage, kilowatt hour usage for the year before that they install solar. And generally we would see that the utility would allow you to install up to 100% of your total annual kilowatt hour consumption. So you could be what they call net zero or 100% green net. Certainly you're going to use some, produce some, and give some back and take some back. But the idea is that you're producing a net zero if you do that approach. Or one thing we look at is there's a thing called KW demands that utility tracks for each customer. And they can look at what the peak demand of that customer is, and we can size the solar array so it's appropriate for either a combination of their peak usage demand and or their total annual consumption. So that's generally layered on top of the size range that is typically allowed between the two billing options. So the idea behind all the right sizing is, let's say, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see my calculator. I think the way I shared it, I only shared my PDF. Can you see my calculator?
No.
Okay. Trying to
No,
think if there's a way I can share my whole screen.
Yes, there should be, Chris. If you go to share screen,
See basic, advanced, and files.
should be, I think maybe under basic, there should be an option to share your entire screen. It should be like the first option you see.
For some reason, it's not showing on mine. What I can do though is maybe share a an Excel file. So I know this is getting a little into the details, but I think it's important to understand some of these concepts. And when we talk about this right sizing and deciding at what point do you go with one method over the other and what size solar do you allow each customer to install, we look at the typical solar production. So we look to see if I have it right here. Here we go. So on page 7 of the PDF, it's labeled 7, but it's actually page 9 of the electronic document because of the title pages. But there's a chart here that estimates how many kilowatt hours a typical fixed solar array would produce, at how many kilowatt hours it'd produce in Sturgis. And you can see this bottom number is what we're looking for. This 1,198. That's saying in Sturgis, a 1 kW DC fixed solar panel should produce on average 1,198 kilowatt hours a year.
Hey, Chris,
So-
I think you might need to change your screen share. 'Cause I think,
Oh,
I think
yeah, I
you-
went back to the PDF, sorry.
sorry, that's okay.
Can you see my Excel or not anymore?
Well, what we're seeing is the electric rate design.
Okay, can you see this screen now?
Mm.
Excel?
We see Excel, but we see the electric rate design in Excel.
Okay, let me try to get a new tab. Can you see a blank tab now?
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm used to sharing my whole screen, so I'm not, for some reason, it's only allowing me to share each app. So I'll just retype it here. So a fixed solar in your area is expected to produce 1,198 kilowatt hours a year. And a single axis, I'd have to flip back. I think it was around 1506. It should be on page 8 of that PDF. Does anybody have that handy? I think it's 1506.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so, and this is per year per kWdc of solar. And when you install solar, there's something called an installed nameplate size of the solar array. So this will be common terminology that you'll hear when you talk to a solar installer, is what is the kWdc size of the array that you'll be installing. So these are the amount of kilowatt hours that you can expect in Sturgis per year per kWdc. Oops. So let's take a customer. What's average residential kilowatt hours a month? About 950,000. John or Holly, if you,
Yeah, in town, it's probably closer to 700 or 750 per
750.
month.
Okay, so they're going to have 750 usage. Now this is how many kilowatt hours they use per month, typically. So we say, what is their annual usage that they're doing before solar? And we can calculate that, and we could, and Sturgis will be able to pull up the specific customers, billing history and validate that these numbers are correct. But I'm just showing you an example. So a typical customer would use 9,000 kilowatt hours on average in the city. So then we could say if they were to install a fixed array, we could say equals this many annual divided by this many expected. And this particular customer in this example would be allowed to install up to a 7.5 kW solar array, as long as that falls within your interconnection policy, which I have typically seen at least allowing up to 10. So in this case, this customer would be allowed to do this. But then we layer in their demands too, and that gets a little more involved because it requires you to understand how demands peaks work. But we would allow up to 110% typically of the peak demand, which ends up being real close to the 7.5. It's just sort of a double check to make sure that it's correct. And the reason why we don't want a customer to install larger than their typical usage is it will end up resulting in the customer pushing too many excess kilowatt hours back to the grid. And in the times of variable production, in terms of either a snowy day, a cloudy day, what have you, it can cause power quality issues due to the intermittency of the production from the solar. So we want to try to limit it to just what the requirements are for that particular customer, even though they will be trading some power back and forth. Does that help explain it?
Commissioner Good has his hand raised, or Vice Mayor Good has his hand raised.
Yes, Mayor?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I guess my question is more political than it is technical. You say we will allow a certain array size for customers. Has that been tested? That, and also if in fact they were to be let's say 125%, is that detrimental to the total grid within the city because of the intermittent production capabilities? So that's a two-part question. First of all, you know, I want to put in a solar array that makes me net zero and beyond. I want to try to make money off of my array as well as save money on my array. And you're limiting me through policy. Is that permissible? And secondly, is it detrimental if I do go beyond that? In this case, if I went up to 15 solar arrays, fixed solar arrays, is that detrimental to the grid?
Yeah, all really good and interesting topics, and you know, we could actually dive into each question probably for a number of hours, but I'll try to make it short and concise. One is, yes, this has been tested and proven, and yes, utilities are electing to put caps, reasonable caps on it. But it is totally up to the discretion of the decision makers of the utility to ultimately decide if they're going to cap it, and if so, at what point. So I don't want to lead you to think that you have to do this. I'm just saying this is just suggested good methodology. You could ultimately say, you know, Sturgis doesn't want to limit anybody, and we're going to put everybody on a net billing, and you can install as big as you want. But studies have shown that even when a customer is what we call right sized, now this example is my example of right sizing this customer on just from the basis of their kilowatt hour usage versus their estimated production. Even when they're right sized, on average, they're going to push about 50% of their total production back to the grid. So that's even when they're right sized. So, you know, even with a capped and right sized system, it's still causing grid anxiety, if you will. You know, to the extent that a grid can handle this type of influx due to the intermittency of the resource will be dependent on, you know, each specific locale of that customer and how capable that area of the grid can handle that intermittency, but you can pretty quickly see some power quality issues when there's too much getting pushed back to the grid.
Okay, can I jump in for a second? Is there a cost of equipment to the city to allow for that pushback?
It depends on which method or methods you elect. Under the net billing, I believe that's part of your standard metering package right now. And if anything, it may just take a metering programming change that I believe Jeff is capable of doing. And anyone's welcome to jump in if you feel otherwise. But I think that one is, ready to go. But obviously, there's some engineering and some interconnecting equipment and connections that have to be made. But that's spelled out. That will be spelled out in your interconnection agreement that John had mentioned. So that part of it is typically a cost borne by the customer who installs it. But from a metering and billing perspective, you should be able to handle that with your current system. When we look at the buy all, sell all option, we feel that the limited testing and research we've done with your billing system, that it could be, the goal is that it can be accomplished in your billing system, but the additional thing that would have to take place is you would have to install an additional meter on the solar panel itself. Because under the buy all, sell all, the customer is getting credited for all of the solar production, where under the net billing, they're only getting credited for the amount that they give back to the utility. So that's why we need that additional meter, so we can track what that meter is producing, so we can properly bill and credit the customer for their production. So that would be an additional potential expense. And you as decision makers can decide, do we bear that cost to install that additional meter and read it and maintain it, or do we pass on a small meter charge for that customer to have that second meter? So all really good questions, but those would be the main two differences from perspective of you as a utility.
Commissioner Burr has his hand raised.
Commissioner Burke.
Thank you, Your Honor. Do we have any numbers as far as how many solar residents that we have in the city that would take part of this plan?
We don't have any estimates, Commissioner. We have a few that have already put some in, but I don't know what the potential is for the market.
We don't have any major customers that, or I should say residents that want to be part of this plan.
Not that I know. We have a couple that have already installed some, and we're using one of them as kind of our pilot program to do the metering test and utility billing. But beyond that, I don't know. We've had maybe a handful of people that have inquired, and just had a call today about someone else that wanted to know if we had net metering and for residential. So all told, we probably have had less than 12 calls, but we haven't made any effort to try to do any kind of survey to see what the market really looks like.
All right, thanks, Jim.
Commissioner Mullins has his hand raised.
Mr. Mullins.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just to piggyback off of Commissioner Burr's question about customers currently, did they consult with the city before installing, and therefore they're below that solar array limit that is being proposed here?
The only thing that's happened is they had to meet building and zoning code requirements. There's been nothing done electrically on either their rates or the meter. So their only benefit at this point is just the offset of the kilowatt hours that they would buy from us. And I didn't have anything to give to them because we didn't have the net metering program. We're still waiting on the distributed energy resource documents and interconnection standards. The only discussion, because they're small, was to make sure that they did not feed back onto the distribution system if we had a power outage. So they did meet those IEEE standards, but they don't have anything beyond that.
Okay, so you're saying that if they do, well, you're saying that if we do initiate this policy, that their systems are going to fit within the parameters of what's being suggested here then?
They would meet, I think, the technical requirements for the interconnection because that was discussed ahead of time. And then the things that Chris is talking about, I think they would fall into that as well. So we did mention that when they put them in, as far as the ones we know, Commissioner, that electrically they're good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Good has his hand raised.
Hang on a second, Vice Mayor Good. Skip, did you have a question? I saw you waving your hand.
Yeah, I wonder, my question is, do we have any figures on costs yet? What it's gonna cost the city, what it's gonna cost the customer for this?
Did you hear that question, John or Holly or Chris? What's it going to cost the city or the customer if we implement this program?
I'm not, equipment wise, the cost will be pretty minor. If you're beyond that, I guess, are you asking what the impact on power supply or those sorts of things, Commissioner?
What I'm looking at is what might show up on the bill to the customer every month. I mean, is this an option to hook to this, or are they automatically going to hook the existing customers to that? Or is it going to supplement what we've already got?
Well, this would be, each customer would make that choice. So they'd have to determine if the cost was worth the expense to put in the equipment. It's not anything that would be wholesale. And then there would be some line items on their bill that would show what was purchased and what was returned, and depending on which one of the two processes that Chris mentioned, but it would add a couple lines probably to their bill. I'm not sure I'm answering your question.
It looks like it might be a cost plus on the bill then if you participate in that program.
I can add something if I can.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, this is Chris. So what John's describing, what you're currently navigating with without, formally adopting these policies and making these decisions, is that those customers that are moving forward and actually installing these today, they're following anticipated and proper connection guidelines to be safe and all those things that we would expect. But then in terms of the billing, they would see on their bill the normal billing line items for the kilowatt hours that they're using. And then under our proposed method, if it's a small residential install, they would see those same billable kilowatt hours, but then they would also see a credit line underneath that would say kilowatt hours received in excess from the customer to Sturgis, or however you're going to word it on the bill, excess production, and that will actually be a credit at that 4.7 cent example. So that's under the net billing. So that process, the customer would actually see an additional line item, but it would be a credit to them for that extra excess solar that they would push back to the grid.
Okay, I apologize because what I was looking for, maybe I said it wrong, but I was looking for a cost maybe over and above or under and below what we have now, or what's the gain from this if it's going to cost us more?
From a utilities perspective, the financial gain under net billing is a net loss by that 4.7 cents per kilowatt hour that you would give back, because you're currently not doing that. But under the buy all sell all, it would be an actual net gain to the utility, because you would put the customer back on PARs if they didn't have solar, and they would pay their full retail bill. But then you'd credit them that 4.7 cents, which is an offset from your power supply bill that you would have been billed the 4.7 cents. You, in a sense, are just buying the power from that customer instead of through your wholesale power supplier. So that would be a net zero.
Okay, I guess maybe I'm kind of working on a cold here, but if I'm looking at this, what I'm looking at is the ultimate price we're going to pay. Is it mandated that we participate in this?
No.
Individually customers?
It's not mandated. No, it's up to you as a utility and decision makers of your utility to decide what you're going to allow. In the state of Michigan, it's entirely up to you. This is
So,
just what we're seeing in other areas that other utilities are adopting. Some states are requiring these types of things, but in this case, Michigan has not required it so far of a public utility such as Sturgis. So in a sense, by moving forward with distributed generation, it in some cases costs Sturgis a little bit more under the net billing, but under the buy all sell all, other than the administration of the program, it should be a net zero of cost. But are
Okay.
you thinking more of the perspective from the customers?
well, I'm thinking, okay, you might have one price for the customer that he's gonna pay, but then you've got another price for possibly the city electrical department's gonna pay. And they might be two different figures here. Is that what I'm looking at? If nobody buys or if they don't sell as much as they thought they were. See where I'm going with this cost?
Well, it's only based on the amount of metered kilowatt hours that the customer in fact gives the utility back that they'll be credited on. So the utility's only going to spend that money if and when they receive that power back from the customer. So they'll, instead of getting it from the wholesale market, they're going to be getting it from the customer at the same price. So that's the calculated number that we came up with, was what is the savings from the normal wholesale power supply bill, which is 4.7 cents, and we're going to pass it on to the solar customer instead.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Commissioner Littman, I think maybe you're looking at this in a manner that we are only saying that if an individual customer chooses to build a solar array, he will then participate in this policy. This policy is not utility-wide. There is no cost if we put this policy in place and no one hooks up or everyone hooks up, the only people that are impacted are the individual customers. The utility itself is not instituting a policy that will cost the utility any money. It's only if an individual customer chooses to put up a solar array, he will then be impacted by the policy that's chosen by the utility, that being either the net or the buy all sell all policy. So it's not something that's going to cost the utility any money other than the time and effort spent in developing the policy. It's not a cost that's distributed among each and every utility user. The only benefit is to the individual who places a solar array on his property.
Okay, well then if I look at it from that perspective, there's going to be a cost to install the equipment to use this. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was a question I had. What is the cost to the utility itself for interconnection?
Or does the customer cover that cost if he or she chooses to connect to it? And if you don't connect to anything at all but what you've already got, is it going to be status quo?
That should be identified in your interconnection policy agreement that I believe John has referred to. And John, I'll pass that to you. I personally have seen where most of that interconnection cost is borne by the customer who's choosing to interconnect. But John,
but if you don't choose to interconnect, there's no cost. Is that right?
Customer, whatever work the utility had to do to accommodate the interconnection, whatever those costs were, would be paid by the customer. So if we needed to add a metering or a service point or that sort of thing, then whatever those costs were would be paid by the customer, not by the city of Sturgis.
Okay, but my question, maybe I'm beating a dead horse here. I apologize. But if you choose to do nothing, is there still a charge or?
No.
Okay, that's
No.
what I was
So
thinking.
if you as Mr. Lippman decided not to do anything, you would bear no cost.
Okay, well, that's
It's
what I was
only if you choose to put in a solar panel,
Yeah,
and at that point, then whatever costs were associated with your personal installation would be borne by you, but not anybody else.
okay. Thank you. That's what I was looking for.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Vice Mayor Good has his hand raised.
Vice Mayor, you say?
Yes,
Yeah.
my question is for Superintendent Ebert. The reason we're here is because the school system has chosen to do an analysis of potential solar activity at the schools. My question is for you is, what is your ultimate goal here? What is it you're trying to achieve by driving this solar bus, if you will?
Yeah, good question. There's actually three things. And as you know, we had a team of students that did this work alongside of us. So the first thing is we're looking to engage our students on a consistent basis on meaningful real world problems. So this is just the first of many things that we're going to engage our kids on that, to make a difference. So when you're talking about make a difference from their perspective, it's the environmental benefits of renewable energy, right? You talk to our kids and they can speak passionately about it, and they talk about the careers that they want to be in that field, or engineering or what have you, and they want to have meaningful lives and make a difference, right? And the other piece is we don't think it'll be a massive financial benefit, but we do think we could gain some financial relief from utilities by doing this, and any dollar that we can reallocate towards teaching and learning is a benefit to us. So it's really those three reasons to engage the kids in meaningful projects and learning, the environmental aspect, and then the financial benefits to reallocate towards teaching and learning.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments on this subject from the commission? Do we have anybody in our audience who would like to make a comment, Andrew?
Sure. So anybody who's attending via the Zoom meeting link can participate by using the raise hand feature on their Zoom program. If you have any comments to make on this topic, please use the raise hand feature now. I see none, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Andrew. Again, any other comments by the commission? John, do you have any more comments? Holly, Chris, would you like to make anything, or Dr. Ebert?
Vice Mayor has his hand raised. Mr.
Vice Mayor.
I thought we were looking at this as to the analysis done by Chris and our staff. Do we want to direct the staff to move forward with a policy for net metering? Do we want to direct the staff to move forward with a buy all, sell all policy? Is that what we're looking to do here, John? Is that what you're looking for? Griffith?
Yes, just seeing if A was to provide information based on the request of the schools and what the analysis showed, and whether or not you wanted us to move forward with developing a policy for your consideration. So it'd be which type of distributed energy resource generation we would want to encourage or set up the agreements for, and that sort of thing. So yeah, if you want us to proceed, we'll come back with something.
Well, I would ask then Superintendent Ebert. A suggestion was that the net metering may be the policy that we should consider most prominently. Is that something that the students study, and your understanding of that was more acceptable, the net metering policy?
Yeah, obviously, if you ask us what would fit more with our recommendation, it would be the net metering. I absolutely appreciate the work that's gone into this. It's been outstanding, so thank you. But yeah, that was our original recommendation after our study, was the net metering or net billing, whatever you want to call it.
Couple different ways to go about that are in the report. One thing I do like to note is, even though we're not regulated by the Michigan Public Service Commission, they have moved away from net metering and gone to distributed energy resources. So that in and of itself is something that's going away for the regulated utilities, but they have these other options that Chris has put together for us.
So we're looking for a consensus to whether we want you to proceed then, correct, John, is what you're looking for?
Yes.
Do we have, as from the commission, do we have consensus to allow John to continue to research this subject?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay,
It's a yes for me.
got a thumbs up. I'm looking for
Yes.
Susie here.
Yep.
Okay, it looks like you have consensus, John, to continue up to proceed with to come back to the commission with some type of proposal.
Okay. And it would include not only the rates and the metering aspects here, but it would also have the resources, the interconnection agreements, and the whole kit and caboodle, so to speak. So we'll have all those documents for you as well.
All righty. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Chris, Dr. Ebert, and the kids, thank you all for your work you've done on this. And John, thank you again also. All right.
Thank you.
Moving along, we are into our visitor section. Andrew, let's see if we have any visitors that are with us tonight who have any questions or something to bring forth to the commission that is not on our agenda.
Sure, Mr. Mayor. Once again, for those attending via the Zoom meeting link, you can use the raise hand feature in your Zoom program in order to be recognized for public comment. If you have any public comment to make, please use the raise hand feature at this time. I do have one public comment from Joel Krantz. I'm going to allow him to bring him on board here. Should unmute himself.
Okay.
Mr. Krantz.
Mr. Krantz, would you please just give us your address here?
313 South Clay.
Thank you, sir. And what comment would you like to make?
I just wanted to introduce myself. I recently filed to run for city commissioner of precinct 2, and just wanted to introduce myself. I'm a 26-year-old father and factory worker here at a factory here in town, and I pretty much wanted to run because I noticed that that my generation, their voices seem to be unheard pretty much in a lot of the halls of government. And I feel like the easiest way to remedy that is to step up and try to be a part in my own community. And that's pretty much all I had to say.
All righty, thank you, Mr. Krantz, and good luck.
Thank you.
Are there any other visitors, Andrew?
No, Mr. Mayor, I do not see any other hands from visitors.
All right, thank you, sir. I will now go to the next item on our agenda is the approval of our agenda, and I will take a motion to approve our agenda.
Move for approval of tonight's agenda for August 26, 2020, as presented.
Support, Commissioner Burr.
Okay, I've got a motion by Commissioner Littman, a support by Commissioner Burr. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Wiki,
Yes.
Commissioner Burr,
Yes.
Commissioner Klinger,
Yes.
Commissioner Mullins,
Yes.
Commissioner Littman,
Yes.
Commissioner Malone,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Good,
Yes.
Mayor Heil.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Next would be the approval of our consent agenda. I will take a motion to approve our consent agenda.
Your Honor, next I also approved for tonight's consent agenda, also for August 26, 2020, as presented. Commissioner Littman.
Support.
Oops. Who was supporting that?
Support, Commissioner Burr.
Thank you, sir. I have a motion by Commissioner Littman, support by Commissioner Burr to approve our consent agenda. Mr. Rhodes, roll call, please.
Commissioner Klinger,
Yep.
Commissioner Burr,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiki,
Yes.
Commissioner Littman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Good,
Yes.
Commissioner Malone,
Yes.
Commissioner Mullins,
Yes.
and Mayor Heil.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you. On to our next item on our agenda is the unfinished business, the downtown social district and common area. This will be the second reading. Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners. As we discussed last time, we're looking at establishing a downtown social district and commons area per Michigan state law that was recently approved. This would allow for sale of alcoholic beverages from certain licensees out into a commons area. I'm not gonna, I went through the policy at the last meeting. If you have any questions about anything that we covered at the last meeting, I'm happy to answer them. Do want to note two changes that we had brought forth kind of in the policy from last time. One is a recommended change. The other is an option that was discussed at the last time. So some more discussion and direction from the commission on that would be appreciated. First, the change that we did choose to make or are recommending to make is for a licensing fee for the commons area logo. If you recall, Gene Harrison from Wings Etc. had talked about Port Huron's idea policy, part of their plan to charge 50 cents additional on cups or stickers for the social district logo to generate a little bit of revenue for the district and offset some of the fees for signage and things like that and maintenance of the district. After some discussion, we're looking at a similar program. We would be looking at actually a license to use the logo. This would just allow some flexibility for Wings Etc. or any other license holder and how they wanted to either print cups or do stickers and kind of keep the city out of that general, out of the specifics. And we would establish a fee of 35 cents per beverage container sold. That would be something that the license holders would keep track of, and then on a quarterly basis, reimburse us for each beverage container sold at a rate of 35 cents per container. I did discuss this with Gene, kind of talk through, what this might look like and whether this was something that would work for Wings Etc. in his business. He seemed to think it would. The 35 cents, it sounded like, would be something that he would incorporate along with the cost of the cups themselves as an upcharge to his customers, but that would be his to work out and figure out how he wanted to address that. But he did not seem off-put by the amount as we discussed it. Again, we would use these fees to offset or this money to offset anything that would be associated with the district, such as additional signage or trash cans, any additional labor that would be needed to make the district work. And then if we had any excess beyond that, basically I'll use it for community assets within the district. Doing some real quick figures on that, we thought maybe between $3,000 and $4,000 annually. I think that may be a little bit optimistic. We just don't know. It kind of depends on how successful the program is in the community. The second thing that bringing to you is a proposed change to the boundaries. I know this was kind of an optional thing. This was something that the Vice Mayor had brought up, interest in bringing the American Legion into the district in some way. I do want to share kind of this alternate plan map and what it might look like. In order to make this work, we would have to expand the social district boundaries. And you can see what my proposal is. The current plan had us kind of ending at the railroad tracks here. We would extend that and cover all the way down to Centerville Road, north and south. That obviously would take care of the American Legion property, as well as include Memorial Park. So if there was an event at the American Legion or something where they were selling there, we could conceivably have a way to attach it to Memorial Park and expand that. The way we kind of looked at this, we actually extended the downtown commons area in this alternative to the American Legion property. I feel that's necessary based on the way the law is written so that the American Legion can actually get a license, but then created basically a sub area of their outside property and then sidewalks connecting Memorial Park and then on the north side of Chicago Road back to the rest of the commons area. We would propose that if this sub area was to go into effect, much like the other sub areas, it would only be activated with approval of the commission. for an activity or event at the American Legion or in Memorial Park. So that's certainly something that we can incorporate if that's the desire of the commission to take this alternative. We would at that time need to amend the plan slightly, and I would just ask that you do that in the motion. There's a few things that would need to be changed, but I think in the motion it would just be simply to approve the plan with the addition of the downtown social district, West End sub area, and amended boundaries. So I see we have a couple of raised hands. I'm going to stop the share here so I can see who they are. I believe we had Commissioner Wiki first.
Commissioner Wiki.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think I like where the boundaries are. Other than I did see that there's some residential areas that are within that. I'm not a big fan of that. But other than that, it looked good.
Commissioner Wiki, just for my clarification, is that the alternative area?
Yeah, I saw looked like there was a block on Grove Street that was included.
Yeah, and it's mostly because of the way things had to connect that got included. As you recall, the social district would include those areas, but the commons area is the key for where people can actually take the alcoholic beverages. So the commons area there runs on the sidewalk, I believe, past that area, so that there would be no ability to actually take from up to a residential property in that area right now, at least. Vice Mayor Good has his hand raised.
Vice Mayor.
If I understand correctly, the social area in red on your shared screen that you had up there is one portion of the overall program, and the yellow areas are considered sub areas and are only activated upon action by the commission. Is that what I understand?
Very, very close. So the way they've set this law up, they make us establish a social district, which is basically the area in which we can establish these commons areas. The commons areas are the areas where you can actually sell a drink and then walk out into. So I can't walk with a beer that's sold at the American Legion or Wings, etc., or anywhere else, just anywhere in that area in red. I can only, and we're looking at this particular map, the line in blue would be the area that's always effective, and that's to link up with the rest of the downtown commons area as it was presented at the last meeting.
Okay.
And then you are correct that the yellow dotted area is a sub area and only effective when the commission authorizes it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
That clarifies it perfectly.
And the sidewalk, Andrew, a quick question. I got the sidewalk from the American Legion back downtown. You can walk that with a drink, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And Commissioner Klinger has his hand raised.
Commissioner Klinger.
I just want to speak out about my thoughts on the alternative district. Adding in Memorial Park and then also the San Miguel restaurant parking lot, as well as the AutoZone parking lot, and then connecting adjacently. Knowing this area, living this area for a long time, that doesn't sound like a safe choice to add that specifically. With the railroad tracks there being a part of it nearby, as well as the main road being close by, I don't have a fond agreement to reaching Centerville Road like we do with this here. So I had to speak bluntly there. I don't agree with Memorial Park being included, or San Miguel at all, and AutoZone as well.
So just to clarify once again, so on this map here, we're showing San Miguel, AutoZone, the areas in red, only as areas that could potentially someday have a commons area over them where you could actually physically take a take an alcoholic beverage. Right now, the way the alternative plan would be set up, you could not take a alcoholic beverage into the San Miguel parking lot or auto zone or anything like that. You could only take it into Memorial Park if it was activated as a sub area by the city commission. And you could in fact only take it anywhere north of Chicago Road if it was activated by the city commission. So again, that yellow dotted line identifies that boundary.
I understand the subsectors.
Okay.
I even activated is it absolute? I understand that you said the continuity of the overall district needed to be whole, but would we have to include the section between, if we wanted to have Memorial Park as one of those sub districts? I mean, is it absolutely necessary to allow those auto zone, the San Miguel parking lot as well? Can we avoid those kind of things? That just doesn't, to me, it
Right.
doesn't fare well. These places are, just businesses. They're not, they're not restaurants. They're not places where you would go and get a beverage or, hang out and reside with a beverage. So to me, it
Sure.
doesn't sound like a safe addition. That's all.
So yeah, and just so to your point, if this alternative was proposed on a normal basis, the only place you could take an alcoholic beverage west of the railroad tracks is on the sidewalk on the south side of Chicago Road up to the American Legion property. And that was only because I was not certain that the American Legion could actually get a license if it wasn't always, continually activated as part of the commons area.
I see.
If the commission chooses to do the sub area, and it is certainly not required to include Memorial Park or anything else here. The only places you could walk around with a beverage when that sub area was activated was on this American Legion property, on the sidewalk adjacent to Chicago Road, crossing inside Memorial Park, and then on the sidewalk only heading back towards downtown. And that's the only place you could have it. And that's, again, only if the commission chooses to activate it. But we can make a change where Memorial Park isn't included at all if that's what the commission desires.
It's quite a tight yellow line for people to abide to. That's all.
Sure.
Thanks. That's all.
Thank you. Any other hands? Andrew.
I see a hand raised from a member of the public.
Okay. I was just going to ask if there was somebody there.
Yep, I'm going to go ahead and allow him to speak. He should be getting a message to unmute himself. Showing up as Matt Craven. If you want to unmute yourself on the would be in the lower left-hand corner, Mr. Craven. There should be a mute button that you want to uncheck. There we go.
Mr. Craven, would you please give us your address, please?
Oh,
he's muted again.
Yeah, I see he's muted himself again. Try one more time.
Hello?
Hello, Mr. Craven.
Yes, Mr. Craven, would you please give us your address?
I'm a resident of Borough Township, but I'm in the city a lot. I was just tuning in today to kind of make a comment on the consumption lounge area, I guess, for consuming alcohol.
Okay.
I've understand that you guys have opted in on the recreational things and all that, but you've opted out on consumption lounge in the community. I feel that it would be kind of discriminatory towards the cannabis user on allowing alcohol beverages to be consumed up through town and designated areas like that, while not allowing people to enjoy cannabis in the same atmosphere, in the same settings. That's all I would kind of have to say about that. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Any more hands from the public, Andrew?
No, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Let me get back to my screen here. Are there any more comments from the city commission on this subject? Seeing none, or Andrew saying none, I will make. Oops. Who was this?
Vice Mayor has his hand raised.
Vice Mayor.
Yes, I just want to comment on the fact that I brought up the inclusion of the American Legion for a couple different reasons. One, I was contacted by the commander at the Legion, and it was his desire that they be allowed to participate in this program for the membership to have advantages that are given to those that are in the downtown area on the other side of the railroad tracks. I am a member of the American Legion, and I have in the past, prior to our governor's restrictions, been able to participate in a number of their social activities, and I believe that their inclusion, at least as a sub area, is the right thing for us to do. The connecting blue line, if you will, and we all want to support the blue line. The connecting blue line is what takes us back to the downtown area, and then I understand Commissioner Klinger's concern about Memorial Park and potential there. But as a sub area, we can always say that it's not included in whatever activity that takes place. In addition to that, Commissioner Key's comments with regard to the owns property that goes through to Williams and also owns, so those two, I think there's two residential properties on the west side of Grove Street that would be in that. I'm not sure that the overall impact of inclusion of the American Legion would be excessively detrimental to those properties. The way I look at this particular social district and common areas is that what we're doing is temporarily lifting the open container law. Michigan has a law that says you can't have an open container of alcoholic beverages anywhere for that matter. And when you're traveling in your car or walking down the street. And so what they've done is said to the communities throughout the state, you're going to have these festivals in your city, et cetera, et cetera. Will allow you, if you choose, to lift the open container restriction. And I see this as a positive impact on our festivals. And in addition to that, a positive effect on the Chamber of Commerce, who was always scrambling for volunteers to man the alcoholic beverage tent, the beer tents, if you will. And so there's a lot of benefit to them by allowing this social district. So I would like to see us approve that amendment to the policy with the inclusion of the sub areas of the American Legion, the common area down the sidewalk, and Memorial Park, even though the Commissioner Klinger does have a point with Memorial Park, and perhaps we'll look hard at that inclusion of that particular sub area being allowed during whatever might be proposed. So I thank you for your time, and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Any other comments?
Commissioner Klinger and then Commissioner Burr.
Thank you, Commissioner Klinger.
Just a quick overview. Just wanted to make sure I'd gotten this in there. The trash receptacle plan that we have currently, I'm pretty aware that we have some already current receptacles at Free Church Park, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? We
Yeah.
have 2 or 3 there.
Yeah.
Okay. And then is there any thought or maybe interest in adding maybe 2 more to the now fully rebuilt Pleasant Avenue, common area as well at the back of the building line?
I believe there are a few in the new, that'll be in the new Pleasant area. I just didn't have them on there because I didn't have the exact position of where they were going to be. So,
Okay, I just wanted, yeah, I saw that there's one in front of the chamber there and across the street as well at the empty corner. I'm wondering if maybe that could be moved to the front end of that old journal building. That might be better noticed, better utilized, instead of being left at an open, empty lot. Also, less chance of it to be, dumped, tipped, vandalized, whatever possible.
Yeah.
So just a thought
Yeah.
there.
Yep, and we'll be working with the Parks Department to kind of, again, make sure that plan gets the best it possibly can for them to do collection, and then also for us to make sure we're not seeing a lot of dumping and trash thrown everywhere and that type of thing. So that's definitely something that is not set in stone.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner Claire. Do you say Commissioner Burr, Andrew?
Commissioner Burr, and then Commissioner Mullins also has raised his hand.
Burr.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. After giving a little bit of consideration, I'd have to agree with Commissioner Klinger. The park, Memorial Park, has a playground down there. I just do not have people going down there with kids playing and have drinking allowed. I can't see, since Memorial Park is mostly on a hill, I doubt we'd have too many events there because probably people be rolling down the hill anyway. But I would just like to see that side eliminated too. Leave open the south side, but close up the north side at this point.
Would that be something that you would be interested in, just ending it at the American Legion property then? I imagine that would be the most logical thing.
Right, and on the north side, just stop at the tracks.
Yep, okay.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Mullins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've heard everybody's, back and forth and the pros and cons and all this kind of thing. I'm happy with the way that the revised edition is, because of the fact that the park would only be utilized if we give commission approval for it. So therefore, I move that the Sturgis City Commission adopt the resolution establishing a social district and commons area in the city of Sturgis and improving a social district plan.
That's a motion, right? You made a motion?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I might just ask Commissioner if that motion includes amending the plan to.
That motion does include with the amended map, correct? You presented tonight. Yes.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Mullins. Do I have support?
Support.
Vice Mayor support.
I think Commissioner Malone supported it before you did that.
And Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Klinger does have his hand raised before we
Okay,
go to.
before we call for the roll call, Commissioner Klinger.
I just wanted to echo my thoughts on not including Memorial Park in this subsection and cutting it off at the American Legion. Commissioner Burr made a good hard line with that. I live that area. I see it frequented enough already. I can only imagine when people are given the slight grace to be allotted the use of the American Legion parking lot, that the abuse toward the park or park amenities, being as though that it also has a playground on it that could be improperly utilized at any point by someone who is under the influence of alcohol. I just speak to those things highly at this point before we make this vote. That's all.
Thank you. Any other comments before we ask for a roll call? I'm going to ask Ken if you would read the motion that is out there, because I know it was changed a little bit. would you please read the motion?
Can Commissioner, because this is the resolution, but Commissioner Mullins, would you just mind, would you help me out, I guess?
Let me get it down. I would move that the Sturgis City Commission adopt the resolution establishing a social district and commons area in the city of Sturgis and approving a social district plan based on the alternative map that was presented tonight.
Okay. Thank you.
And Commissioner Malone supported that.
Yep, got that. Yep.
All
Okay.
right. If there's no more comments before on this, I will ask for a roll call vote.
Okay. Commissioner Littman,
Aye.
Commissioner Wiki,
Yes.
Commissioner Malone,
Yes.
Commissioner Burr,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Good, Vice Mayor Good, I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Mullins,
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Klinger,
No.
and Mayor Heil.
Yes.
So I have 7 yay votes, 1 nay vote, so the motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to the next item under unfinished business is the water assistant. Oh, excuse me, there's a second motion on this agenda item. We have a second motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll take that one as well. I'll move that the Sturgis City Commission consider this the second reading of and approve an amendment to the City Code of Ordinances, Part 2, Chapter 38, Article 5, Section 38-124, pertaining to consumption of alcoholic beverages in parks and public property as part of a commons area effective September 16th, 2020.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Mullins and second by Commissioner Malone. Consider this the second reading and approve the amendment of the code. I'm not going to read it all. Roll call, please, unless we have anybody that wants to make a discussion on this. Seeing none? Roll call. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Burr,
Yes.
Commissioner Malone,
Yes.
Commissioner Klinger,
Yes.
Commissioner Mullins,
Yes.
Commissioner Littman,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiki,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Good,
Yes.
Mayor Heil.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you very much, folks. Now, moving on to our next item under the unfinished business is the Water Assistance Program update. Michael Hughes. Michael.
Okay, I'm not on mute. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a lot of additional information to provide. We did officially opt in to the Water Assistance Program. That deadline was August 21st. So the next step is that we're supposed to work with the state and the local community action agency to develop a data sharing plan. We're kind of waiting to see what that looks like. I think that would be kind of our next hurdle to understand if we have the capabilities to be able to export the data that they need in the way that they need. So I think we just continue on unless you tell us otherwise, but we're just going to go down this road until we have some sort of issue that prevents us from moving forward.
Okay, any questions or comments from Michael on this topic? Seeing Andrew saying nothing to me, I will ask if there's anybody in our audience that has any questions. Andrew?
Sure. Once again, if anybody has a public comment to make on this agenda item, please use the raise hand feature if you're in the Zoom meeting. I will give you a chance to do that at this time. I see none, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So because there's no motion on this, basically you're looking for consent to continue the process, right, Michael?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. Do we have consent to allow this this issue to continue to be looked at and monitored by the staff? I see a lot of thumbs up, nods. You have consent, and Michael.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Moving on to our next item on the agenda, which is new business. It is utility rates, and Holly, you are up.
Thank you, Mayor and City Commission. So we are required under the City Code of Ordinances that on or before September 1st to approve utility rates for the ensuing year. And a review of the utility rates is usually conducted as part of our annual budget process. The water and sewer rates were already approved previously. We had a multi-year plan for that, which is still in place. So we didn't need to do anything new with those this year. However, the electric rates were reviewed this year by Utility Financial Solutions. So I'm going to turn over to Chris here shortly. But we had a lot of things to think about this year with our new power supply cost, the distributed energy resources that we talked about a little bit earlier, as well as just how to fit in all the different pieces. So we needed a little more time to put all these things in place. But I think the good news is that and Chris will go over this in more detail, but we have an overall revenue decrease in our rates as a result of our new power supply costs. So but we also have some new parts of it. So it'll be complicated to go through all the parts. I think we tried in the packet to really go over thoroughly the different parts that we're changing. I mean, the bottom line is for the customer, I think even though we have some different, their bill might look a little bit different in some areas. Overall, they should see power savings. And because we had a lot of changes this year, we only have 1 year of rate design. So we're not doing a multiple year rate design this time. We'll probably, make sure there's just a lot of moving parts. So we want to make sure that they are accurately recovering our power costs. I also want to point out that there is, Chris is going to be, I think, sharing his screen, but in the packet, the bookmark was not there for his presentation on the utility rate design. And I think it starts on page, I think it was page 64 in your packet in case you need to refer to that. But it wasn't bookmarked. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris. He actually already gave you a sneak peek earlier when we were looking at the value of solar when he was sharing his other screen. So if you were paying attention, you may have seen some of the different rate classes and the projected impacts with the new rate design. So Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you go through your, just talk about the different changes and go over your presentation that you have.
Okay, thank you, Holly. I appreciate it. So let me share my screen again. So if I make my PDF full screen, do you see the full document or not with the video sharing? Does it get covered up on the right side for you?
I think it's okay.
No, we can see the full top of the document.
Okay, you can see the full document, full width.
Full width.
Okay, great, thank you. So as Holly mentioned, there's a lot of moving parts here with your electric department in terms of rates and your power supply. And the good news is, as Holly mentioned, is we anticipate with the changeover with some of the power supply changes that you should realize some lower costs with your power supply. And we have a rate design that is attempting to fairly spread that back to the customers. So they should see a net savings on their annual bill. So you can see here that have it broken down by the different rate classes. There's two residential rate classes. By rate class, we mean a specific rate that they're charged for that particular customer. So we break them down in terms of inside city residential, rural residential, commercial, and then there's what we term a demand primary power, and then there's a demand and primary power time of use. Now, in the past, you've had one additional rate class in here, and it was tucked right in between the commercial and the demand. It was called CAE, or Commercial All Electric. And that would be prior to this rate design, a commercial customer that would qualify for that rate if they were entirely on electric service and no gas. So that was a redundant rate class in the past. It actually was the identical rate structure and charges to the commercial class. So basically, to simplify and get rid of redundancy, we rolled up the CAEs into just the general commercial class. So when we talk about the expected savings, let me just zoom in here a little bit more. We're anticipating an overall savings to your customers in total of 5.8% savings on their annual bills. Now, in order to break that 5.8% down to the individual rate classes, we looked specifically at all the different cost drivers and how it impacted these customers. And you can see the respective anticipated savings per rate class. So it ranges anywhere from a low of 4.3 to a high of 9.2, but on average, a 5.8 across all your customers. So the thing that I think is important to look at is the anticipated monthly bill savings. So if you're on this first page in the rate design, you can see, for example, that at the inside city residentials, the average customer should see a $4.43 savings on their monthly bills. So you can see the respective anticipated savings for the monthly bills for the different rate classes. Now, the next chart here on this same page shows what I term billing component breakdowns. In other words, this is how the customers are charged. And these are the different dollar figures they'll see on their actual bill. So currently, under your 2020 rates, an inside city residential customer would see a $16.50 monthly meter charge. They would also see an rounded 11.2 cents per kilowatt hour that would be charged on their monthly kilowatt hour usage. So these are all the current rates based on your 2020 rates. So you can see down through residentials, what they're paying monthly and how they're paying per kilowatt hour, your commercials, your demands, your time of use customers. And you can see the main difference is with this rate decrease being power supply driven. In other words, with your new power supply structure, you're anticipated to pay less for your power. So we're trying to pass that through on that kilowatt hour savings to the customer. So we kept the under the billing component breakdown to the right under the year one. That would be the proposed for fiscal 2021. And you can see that we've left the monthly meter charges the same, and has allowed us to reduce the the kilowatt hour rate based on that power supply savings. And you can notice under current, if you go back to the A, B, and the C's, the residential inside, rural, and commercial, under KW charge, there was a zero. They just paid a monthly meter charge, the stated kilowatt hour charges, and they didn't have a KW demand charge, where the demand primary power and the demand primary power time of use, you can see have had demand charges in the past. What we were able to do is calculate a small incremental demand charge that we will introduce for the A, B, and the C customer classes, but it allowed us also to reduce their kilowatt hour rate by the extent that the demand charge will show on their bill. So it still should be a net savings to the customer. They'll just see it appear on their bill slightly differently. And the main reason why we want to start breaking these out is when you have a rate structure, for example, that just charges a customer meter charge and a KWH charge, there are certain distribution, fixed distribution costs that are buried in that KWH charge that we would want to move toward breaking out into this KW charge so we can more properly and accurately recover those distribution fixed costs based on servicing those customers and reduce our energy costs to be more in line eventually with more of your variable power supply. So this piggybacks nicely onto that value of solar discussion we had earlier, where we've recently calculated that solar under your current power supply is worth 4.7 cents per kilowatt hour. So to the extent over time that we could evolve the customer charges slightly up, the demand charges slightly up, we could reduce these energy charges to be more in line with your 4.7 cent variable energy charge. So then the customer is more fairly paying for the true energy that they're consuming or producing, and they're more accurately paying for the fixed costs that they place on your system. So that's a highlight of the main changes. Again, the simple look at it, as Holly mentioned, the good news is we're anticipating everyone, the average customer to have a lower annual net bill and monthly bill. So with that in the packet, you should see the specific details behind each rate design for each rate schedule or rate class. So you can see under current, those would be your rates that are for fiscal year 2020. In year one, again, would be the proposed for fiscal year 2021. And it should match the summary that's up on page 1 in that rate design under those billing component breakdowns. As you can see all the detail that went behind it. You can see, for example, in the residential inside city, there's some interesting details here. It actually calculates that the average inside city residential customer uses 604 kilowatt hours a month, and their average demand is 6 per month. So we should see on average, their current average bill is about $85.33. Next year, their average bill should be $80.90 for $4.43 savings. So we do these analysis on all your customers based on all of the current and proposed rates and how they actually use those and are affected by those rates. And this would be the detail behind all of that summary. One thing I want to point out is on page 9 of 10, there's probably a chart that most of you are probably not intimately familiar with, but there's 2 rate classes, the demand time of use and the primary power time of use, that their energy is billed based on different hours of the day. And we did an analysis to try to make the change in their bill neutral so they wouldn't see a negative impact. But we tried to fine tune the hours that were defined as off peak, on peak, and what we term critical peak to be more in line with your current power supply and how your power supply costs impact those different hours of the day. So that's showing you the new and the old time periods that are being proposed in this new rate design. And then lastly, it's showing the impacts based on lower power supply costs and how it goes to reduce the lighting rates as well. You can see the individual lamp charges and impacts that the lower power supply has on those lighting rates. So with that, I'll ask if there are any questions or comments or need for clarification.
And maybe just highlight on the time of use rates. I think for the winter time periods, we weren't recommending any change, correct? It
Correct.
just affected the summer.
Yeah, so winter current and winter proposed are all the same. So we did verify that the old structure of winter was valid for the current power supply in winter. So summer, we introduced a few additional on-peak times during the summer day, and then we shifted the critical peak in the summer a little later in the day. That's primarily driven based on the how you incur your peak power supply charges under your new power supply structure.
And we would still have, I don't know, this might be too many details all at once, but we still would have the last year we adopted a monthly rolling power cost adjustment factor, which will still remain. The good news on that again is that the base rate that is included in the rates, which is part of the savings that has been calculated, is rolled back actually to a former level that it was before. We had increased it in the last few years, and we're actually rolling it back to, I think it's a 6.6 rate cents in the base rate for kilowatt hours, and it was actually up to 7.8 over the last couple of years.
Yeah. So the hope, as Holly mentioned, is that we would like to propose a 1 year this time because there's so many changes, and then monitor your new power supply and the impacts of those savings, and then do a refresh study in a year, and then make sure we're on track with all the anticipated savings that we're hoping to realize with this power supply.
And the new solar coming online as well.
Yep.
Okay, is there any questions for Holly or Chris on this item agenda?
We have Commissioner Klinger and then Vice Mayor Good.
Would you like Chris to stop sharing his screen at this time?
Please.
No, please don't. No.
Don't? Okay. Okay.
That's Commissioner Klinger, right?
Yes, that's Commissioner.
Commissioner Klinger, I'll recognize you.
With the hold on, I wanted to get to the electric rate design for 2021, year one. Just looking at the load factor class average demand, is this where we're basing our changes for our period or TOU periods as far as changing our peak hours? I just wanted to make sure I understood completely before I let you go.
Yeah, so you're down on the DTOU and the PPTOU?
Yeah, I'm at page 7 and 8 right now. Just looking at our and page 9, looking at our peak changes. I'm just trying to see whether or not our changes, what we're looking at here, are going to offer a huge benefit, or if it just based on just trying to project the graph out further.
Sure. So the first thing is the time use periods were done outside of looking at load factors primarily. So they were determined first, and then we apply them to the variety of load factors to see how it impacts the different load factors.
Okay.
So if you see the average load factor in, for example, well, let's jump down to time of use. Like demand time of use, average load factor is 53.6% for all of the customers in this customer class grouping. So what we did then is when we shuffled the new time periods, we actually looked at every single customer meter of all of these classes, and we recalculated as if we had their old time use periods and their new time use periods, and made sure that we weren't negatively impacting customers. But certainly different load factors will realize a greater or smaller advantage. So you can see this chart down here, we're saying if you are an average customer, which is a 53.6 load factor, you're expected to save this 9.2%. So having said that, if that's where the 53, if you can look at this chart here, this is load factor here, this is savings here. So if you're to intersect where envision 53.6, where it intersects over here, that's where we get the 9.2.
Yeah.
So you can see if you're a greater load factor, you're going to continue down this savings slope, and you could end up, for example, if you're a 70% load factor, at a greater savings.
You answered my question on where the actual savings factor would be, and how it would vary. But as long as it's consistent across the board that everyone is seeing savings, I guess that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, so the minimum I started this at was 25% load factor. I would highly doubt There's many, if any, customers that are in this class that have lower than a 25% load factor. And even at 25%, they're going to see about a 5.5% savings.
Okay, that's just the base numbers I'm looking for. I appreciate. That's all.
Yeah. So that's, why we show these graphs. So not only do we show you what the average customer should save, but a variety of customers based on their different usages or load factors.
Thank you, Commissioner Klinger. Vice Mayor Good, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I missed my electrical engineering classes when I was up at school, and Chris or John Griffith, I understand usage. I push my lever down on my toaster and I'm using power. But if I push my lever down on my toaster, is my load factor changing as well? And if so, how is that demand number calculated? I noticed as you scroll down the screen, demand in city is 6, demand outside the city is 7, commercial is 9. I don't want to demand very much from the power company. So can I change my bill if I promise not to demand as much? No, the real deal is, can you briefly explain load and demand?
Sure. John, would you like to field that, or do you want me to try and you can supplement? It's up to you.
So I had to unmute, I'm sorry. So the demand charges, or the demand would be generated or that would be billed, is based on a 15-minute period in the 30-day billing month. So the meter every 15 minutes takes a look at what your load is, your demand, and it compares that to what's already in the register. So if the successive period is more, then it just puts that number in. So it watches that and it ratchets up over the 30 days. And so your demand is the amount of power, maximum amount of power you need to run your home in that 30-day period. So the load factor is a measure of how consistent your load is. So if you add 5 kilowatts of demand 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that would be 100% load factor, but nobody achieves that. So as your load comes and goes, then that load factor would drop down. And it's kind of a utilization measure and how flat your demand profile would be over the course of 30 days. And I'm not sure if I answered your question. So if I did not, let me know, or Chris dive in for some more clarification.
John Griffith.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, he did answer my question very succinctly. I appreciate that. Now I have to figure out how to reduce the 15-minute load from my hot tub on my electric demand. Okay. No, you explained it very well, John. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
All right, thank you. Andrew, any more hands from our commissioners?
No other hands from commissioners at the moment, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Let's see if the audience has any questions.
And as I say that, Commissioner Wiki raised his hand.
All right, let's go to, again, start looking at the audience. Commissioner Wiki.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think my question would probably be for Holly. Just looking at the rates and knowing what we've gone through this year as far as revenue loss, in my mind, it would make more sense to maybe drop the rates half as much as proposed, so customers still get savings, but yet we still get a bit more revenue to help make up for some of the losses. But maybe I'm just way off and don't understand this as much as I think.
Well, I think it helps when you look at the impacts by customer. I mean, for a residential customer, $4 a month for an average user. I mean, their percentages might seem high to you, Commissioner Wiki, and I feel you. I get it. So, you know me, I'm all about usually generating revenue, but for the average residential customer that's using, that's going to save $4.43 on average a month. That's not, it's $50 a year. I mean, it's not a lot of savings over that, over that time. And, we updated the financial projection, we updated the capital spending plan. We took all things into consideration, and, the reality is we are saving a good amount on our power supply, and we need to base our rates, on all those things. But I understand what you're saying on that. I was thinking about the demand charge that Commissioner Good mentioned, and I was thinking about the demand, thinking about, well, if he turns his toaster on at 8 o'clock every morning, that's going to give a certain demand. But if he turns, 8 toasters on at the same time, that causes a lot more strain on the system. But I also wanted to point out that in your packet on page 73 is the actual utility rate schedule that will be, if approved here, it's in the format that you're used to seeing, and it would be the summary page that would be included in the budget document as well. So, Commissioner Wiki, I understand what you're saying, and I think part of that reason is why we're recommending a 1-year rate design, because we want to make sure that our electric utility is financially sound and in good shape, and taking all things into consideration. This is where we are.
Thank you.
But I appreciate your desire to raise revenue or not lose as much.
Thank you. Andrew, anybody in our audience?
Once again, for anybody joining us via the Zoom meeting, if you wish to make a public comment on this agenda item, please use the raise hand feature in your Zoom program. I see none, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Can we go back to the full screen, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on this agenda item? If not, I will take a motion for this item. I think Commissioner Burr is making a motion, but he is muted.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the Sturgis City Commission approve the electric rates for billings beginning on October 1st, 2020 as presented.
And I'll support that.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Klinger, supported by Commissioner Burr. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Littman,
Yes.
Commissioner Mullins,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Good,
Yes.
Commissioner Burr,
Yes.
Commissioner Malone,
Yes.
Commissioner Klinger,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiki,
Yes.
Mayor Heil.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. That takes care of our agenda. We are now to the commissioner and staff comments. And I'm going to try to go around my screen here. I'm going to start with John.
I have nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you, John, and thank you for all the work you've done. Holly.
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Again, thank you for what you've done. Ken.
Nothing tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. I'll get back to you in a second, Michael. Roger.
Nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan. I think he said nothing. Thank you, Ryan. Chris, thank you for being with us. Would you like to make a final comment here?
I just wanted to thank everyone for letting me participate and work on the studies with staff. It was really a good project to get through, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Andrew, thank you for what you do here. Any comments?
Nothing other than a reminder on closed session. You should have received a link from Mike that came later in the afternoon for going into closed session, and we can go through details of that in a minute.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Michael.
Yeah, reference closed session. If you do have any issues, why don't you send me a text and then I can try to resend the link to you.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Commissioners, Commissioner Burr.
Nothing tonight, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Klinger.
Just happy to hear of a young interest in the precinct seat. It's good to hear. I just myself spoke to Ken today and registered as a write-in as well. So figured maybe one more round. We'll see what happens. But that's all for this evening. I appreciate all you guys. Chris Lund, I appreciate your due diligence at working this out. I know that our community constantly is embattled with utility rates, and to see a shrink of any kind is a good thing. So thanks again, guys.
Thank you, Commissioner Claire. Commissioner Wiki.
Just one question. If Commissioner Littman, if you could show us your shirt, I want to be able to, I don't know if there's a way. I'm just wondering how many years a commissioner has to put in to be able to get one of those fancy city shirts.
You did it yourself. Guess what I did? I went down to the store that sells the shirts to the schools and that, and I paid to have this put on a shirt that I bought. No freebies.
That was it.
Thank you.
Shirts periodically, like every 10 years or something like that. So maybe it's time.
Are you telling him how to get a shirt there, Michael?
I'm saying periodically the commission does get shirts, and it probably has been quite a while.
All righty. Commissioner Malone.
Nothing tonight.
Thank you. Again, like I said, I'm just going up the screen here. Vice Mayor Good.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the topic of shirts, I think you might want to wait till after the election and then decide whether you want to get shirts for the commission. Mr. Mayor, I think that what we've done for the electric rates tonight and the work that Chris Lund has done along with our staff members is to be commended. And I certainly hope that the Fourth Estate that is attending the meeting outside the pictures I see put up a good story about the reduction in rates. They may not see that very often, but and I thank John Griffith for I think now I'm ready to take my electric engineering class. Thank you, John. That's all, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Vice Mayor. Commissioner Mullins. Here.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Am I unmuted? You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I received an email because of the last meeting that we had the traffic control orders. I received a message from the residents at 205 and 207 Vinewood, basically stating their preference on the no parking on Vinewood Street, both sides, the same as I had mentioned in the meeting there. They are not, they're strictly opposed to having no parking on both sides of the street. Where their house sits right now, they have no parking from 7:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. because of the schools, and they feel that anything beyond that is going to impede their ability to park their cars without having to walk home from somewhere. And in closing, they had mentioned, I'll just read their last sentence of their email. It said, "We understand some property on Vinewood Avenue could be rental property and still part of Fawn River Township. However, all of us who live on Vinewood Avenue are residents, and your change to no parking on either side will affect all of us. We don't need a bike lane. We need parking on Vinewood Avenue. The voices of the residents need to be heard." Just thought I'd share that with the commission. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Littman.
Just maybe for reclarification, when we were discussing the hooking that stuff to the grid, as far as the internet, and is that project with the solar, is that being combined with something from the Sturgis Public Schools? Is there a cost to them in any way on that?
Holly's shaking her head no. John, do you know, or Chris?
If Sturgis Public Schools decides to install a solar project, then that would be on their cost.
Okay.
Just like any other customer, if they decide, hey, I want to put some solar panels on the roof, then that installate, the purchase of the solar panels and installation would be on them.
Okay, but the solar panels are from a private company, right?
Yeah, they would, I'm sure there are multiple private companies that sell solar panels.
Okay, but if you don't, just for some more clarification on my part, if you don't choose to participate in that, are your costs going to go up, down, or stay the same?
No, if you don't buy solar panels, then you don't have to pay for the installation, and then you don't have to worry about any type of net metering, net billing policy.
Okay,
The
but
bill will stay the same.
the cost to whoever, I think the city, for their purpose of the internet, if you got less people paying for it, the costs are possibly going to go up, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't think there's internet involved. I think we're just talking solar panels.
Oh, okay. All right. That's all I got.
Thank you, Commissioner Lippman. I think I'm the only one left. The only comment I'll make, I hope everybody's enjoying the nice warm weather we have. I know we are probably using a lot of electricity, which is going to make John happy, with also make Holly happy because our electric rates are going up. But other than that, I will take a motion to go into closed session to consider the dismissal, suspension, or disciplining of an employee at the request of the employee and the purchase of property. I will take a motion for that. Go into closed session. I didn't hear that.
So moved by Commissioner Klinger.
Thank you. Do I have support?
Second, Commissioner Mullins.
Okay, I've got a motion by Commissioner Klinger, support by Commissioner Mullins. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Mullins,
Yes.
Commissioner Klinger,
Yes.
Commissioner Malone,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiki,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Good. Vice Mayor Good? Didn't get.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Burr,
Yes.
Commissioner Littman,
Yes.
and Mayor Heil.
Yes. We are now in closed session, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Andrew, do you want instructions, or do you think we all can get there?
Just like we've done last time, you'll leave this meeting, use the link Mike sent you this afternoon to join the closed session, and then we will discuss how you get back into the open meeting in closed session. So it'll just be the reverse of the process. We'll leave that meeting and rejoin this link. So,
all righty. Thank you.
For audience members, I will just say that this open session link will stay on, the same as the YouTube stream, while commissioners are in closed session. And then when they rejoin, we'll be back with the open meeting. Thanks, everybody.
Skip, you want to exit this meeting, leave this meeting.
Hey, Ken.
Click this one in between the
Here.
left, yeah.
You're back, Skip.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
You are too, Andy.
I am. Yep.
Do we
He's gonna have to start paying secretary more.
Right.
It looks, do we have everybody here? There's Commissioner Klinger.
Skip has a secretary.
I think we've got everybody here, correct, Andrew?
6. Yes, yes, we do, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we are back now into open session. There's Commissioner Burr, he made it. We are now back into open session. I will accept a motion.
Mr. Mayor, this is Vice Mayor Good. I'd like to make a motion that the city commission accept the resignation of Director Smith and authorize the city manager to execute the separation agreement upon final acceptance by the city attorney.
Have a
Second
motion.
that.
Commissioner Klinger, you second that one?
Yes, I did.
Okay. I have a motion by Vice Mayor Goods, supported by Commissioner Klinger. Roll call.
Commissioner Malone,
Yes.
Commissioner Burr,
Yes.
Commissioner Mullins,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiki,
Yes.
Commissioner Klinger,
Yes.
Commissioner Littman,
With a heavy heart, yes.
Vice Mayor Good,
With regret, yes.
and Mayor Heil.
Also with a heavy heart, yes.
8 yay votes, no nay votes, motion carried.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other comments from the commission before I close this meeting? Commissioners? Seeing none. Andrew, any comments from Michael? Anything else?
No, sir.
All right. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and close this meeting. We are adjourned for this evening. Thank you all.